Well, on Thursday, I did something that's never been done before.
In the history of humanity or in the history of Phil West?
Yeah, yeah, the history of humanity,
Okay.
actually. Well, the history of Austin FC Media,
Okay.
that is.
Okay.
Normally, I don't get to do midweek press conferences because of my day job, but I so happened on Thursday to be traveling to Seattle to attend to some family business, my childhood home, which I grew up, I lived here starting in 1975. I
In the
lived here till
1900s, as the kids say
Yeah,
these days.
yeah. And I lived here till 1988, about halfway through my college. So commuted actually my first 2 years at UW from this very house. So yeah, so I was in an airplane and it touched down about 20 minutes before the press conference was to start. So I took my luggage over to kind of a big central gathering place with a lot of little bars and overpriced restaurants and some dude playing a zither or something. He had some like
Okay.
wild stringed instrument, and I happened to be like about 20 yards from him. I did a press conference from an airport. Nobody, according to Cam Kubik, our friend at Austin FC Communications, nobody has done that before. Nobody has, there might have been plenty of players and coaches on the way to an airport who did post-match stuff, but in terms of posting up in the middle of an airport and asking questions during a random Thursday, never been done before. So I'm a pioneer.
Did you get caught with any airport PA announcements as you were unmuted and talking?
Fortunately, I did not. Various people were eating around me.
You were able to avoid bleed over, mouth noises
Exactly.
of people
Yeah.
chomping on their Nathan's hot dogs and such.
Yeah. I don't think the zither came through either. So anyway, the upshot of this is that I did that. And then today, it's another thing that's never been done before in the history of this podcast. I'm recording right now from my childhood bedroom
That's
where
something that's
where
something
dreams were
that
born.
I have yet to do. I have recorded from my childhood home, but
Okay.
not from my childhood bedroom. So, yeah, I think the record is safe, Phil.
And at some point, my mom may barge in.
So just be ready at a moment's notice to drop a "Mom, not now. I'm podcasting. It's an emergency. It's in the name, Mom."
Emergency podcast. They did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hurry up, shut up, hurry up, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast. We talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. Like I am going to be tuning in at 4:30 Pacific time to watch a match more than 2,000 miles away from Austin and even further from where that match is actually going to be happening. That is, of course, in Charlotte. That is the first away match of the 2026 season for Austin FC. Moisés, what do you plan for your first away match other than watching and waiting for another Christian Ramírez goal?
I'm going to be at the watch party thrown by Los Verdes this
Oh,
Saturday,
nice.
which to do some advanced promo of it, we'll circle back around to the end. It'll be at Hop Squad. Forecast
Mhm.
for rain. If you're concerned at all about showing rain or shine, we expect rain. Everybody will be inside, safe and sound. The screen's inside. The beer is inside. Everything is inside. Don't worry about it. Just drive safely, drive slowly. Get over to Hop Squad. Have a great time. A bunch of vendors will be set up, and it'll be a good old time, as they say.
So forecast for rain.
Forecast for rain, 100%. Like
Guess
100%
what?
plan for rain.
Same here in Seattle.
Oh, in
Shocking,
Seattle?
I know.
What a shock. What an absolute shock. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the first big away game watch party of the season. There's always fun energy to be had there. People recovering from the extreme lift of a season opener tifo, getting everybody's muscles deatrophied and back in motion. The calm before the storm of coming back in a couple of weeks to the next home match against LAFC.
Yes, Hop Squad, fun place to watch soccer. I remember fondly watching Austin FC 2 winning a trophy
Yeah.
from Hop Squad.
Yeah, a very impromptu watch party that kind of sprang up. I mean, that whole playoff run for them was kind of nobody was really necessarily expecting that sort of because you doubted us kings of the road kind of thing. So as many fond memories as Hop Squad has as LV's game day headquarters, the watch parties have been a big part of building on that in the 5-year history of the club.
Yeah. So I guess if we have a watch party for an away match, we have an away match to talk about. So do we want to get into that first? Do we want to get into kind of Thursday press conference, the Frail 4 injury update report heading into that match, and
Yeah,
cover all those bases?
let's talk injury report, availability, that sort of thing. Thursday press availability, which you were there for. There's the recording, which everybody could watch. There's your write-up of it, which everybody could read. But give us the commentary angle of it. What do you think was significant? What do you think was interesting? How does the vibe of the early season midweek press conference feel to you, having not been in the last few of them, when it comes to where you see the coach's head, where you see the vibe from the player you were provided, and so on?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of vintage Nico Estevez, not too high, not too low. Definitely like some things that he's seeing, looking into some of the data. Defensively, they were really, really good, like top 3 or top 4 in the league for that week. Of course, they were playing DC United, so that maybe skews it a little bit, which we will get into a little bit when we get into our goals added differential talk. But learning from what they've done in the early games, some reliance on set pieces that he's talking about. We're going to do some deep dives into set pieces, I think, pretty soon. Just trying to gather some data on that right now. But yeah, it's looking like it's pretty positive. Christian Ramírez was great. He had some really excellent things to say, particularly about Superman and the sharing of the nickname and the sharing of a metaphorical cape, and saying that Brandon will probably be wearing the cape most of the time, but sometimes he's willing to take that on to distract from Brandon or to help the team out. So I thought that was cool. And then also talked a little bit about his number switch from 17 to 21. He wasn't going to challenge Galley for that, which I thought was cool. And he talked about having a 17 tattooed on him. So maybe he'll get a 21 tattooed on him. But then he said, maybe I'll get a tattoo of a trophy this year. And it's like, oh yeah, that sounds good. I'm sure everybody would like that.
New guy has shown up ready to feel at home.
Leagues Cup would be a weird tattoo, but Open Cup would look nice. MLS Cup would sure look nice. Right?
Hey, Leagues Cup would be ridiculously enormous. It's always bigger than you actually think the Leagues Cup trophy is. It's quite the lift, I'll say. But hey, why not all 3? Why not all 3? It's theoretically possible. Theoretically possible. I mean, every other club, in addition to Austin, is really going to be feeling that fixture congestion when it comes to that Leagues Cup initial stage, group stage. What are they calling the first stage of that? Because you found out the opponents and the dates for these matches pretty much simultaneous to the press conference going on. The opportunity that this gives me is one of my favorite things is reminding people about the specific pronunciation of one of these clubs. Club America, everybody knows. Puebla, everybody knows. But Tijuana is often mispronounced Tijuana, which has never been the way that it's actually pronounced. So Club Tijuana, that Austin got them as one of the opponents. A delightful opportunity for me to once again take us to pronunciation school.
So when Krusty the Clown says, I'm going to take you to the happiest place on earth, Tijuana, he's throwing in an extra syllable.
Yep.
By the way, it is called Leagues Cup Phase 1.
Phase
2026 Phase 1. So yeah, actually, Austin, not every team can win 3 trophies this year. Like Nashville, for example, they don't get to defend their Open Cup.
Nope.
They're only slotted. I mean, they can win CONCACAF Champions Cup, but they can't win those 3 trophies. They can win a different 3 trophies, but Open Cups, League Cup, MLS Cup, those are all in play.
There are folks, myself included, who would say that the way that they decided to show up to that Open Cup final, not as interested in playing soccer as they were gaming their way to a trophy. I don't think they deserve to defend that title, but maybe I'm not alone among Austin residents in feeling that way. Maybe Nashville fans feel differently. But here's the thing, is I say, why not 3 trophies? Because until one of them is not just mathematically, but theoretically out of the question, why be pessimistic? Why be pessimistic when something crazy can happen? And I guarantee you, at the beginning of last season, as many people as wanted Austin to make a deep Open Cup run, I don't think anybody really was dead set for sure that Austin was definitely making that final. And I would love to see some similar dispelling of expectations along those lines when it comes to all 3 of these competitions, especially with how deep the roster is compared to the past versions of the club, not just in specific positions, but all around, and how purpose-built it is for the rigors of MLS itself, with less seeing if maybe this guy or this other guy from outside of MLS who has never played in MLS works. Let's see if a giant bag of money can fill gaps. Don't poo-poo it until there's real good reasons to poo-poo it.
And don't worry that the Club America game is only 2 days before the FC Dallas match, August 13th and August 15th. I imagine they're going to move that Dallas match.
They've got to move it to the 16th. They've got to at least give them 3 days. And that's, if you ask me, they've got to at least move it to Sunday, if not postpone it.
Make it Sunday Night Soccer.
Make it Sunday Night Soccer, whatever.
It's Austin, Dallas. It's
Do
fun.
it. It's Austin, Dallas. It'll be good TV.
It'll be spicy, I'm sure. All right. So anyway, I was pleased that we got to hear Nico not necessarily satisfied with what's happening in the first 2 matches, but looking at, again, just how the team is doing, wanting to make sure that they are improving and progressing. A quote in particular that jumped out is, we want to play a cleaner type of soccer, and we were encouraging the team, the players, and the ideas and the behaviors of the opponent in order that we can get better. And in terms of the frail 4, as I am now christening them, so Mikel Dessler, he is now questionable on the injury list. And it said, Nico said, tomorrow after the training session, we'll decide with the medical staff and high performance team. So that is today or yesterday, as you were listening to this, about how he feels and how he can help the team. And based on that, he's very close to joining the roster. So I would imagine that we're going to see him as a sub. Taylor can maybe start training next week. Owen Wolf, same thing. So I think we're probably going to be, possibly that LAFC match, but I'm thinking more likely they're both going to debut against Miami, which will be interesting for Taylor if he does get into that game, because of course he did play there. And then Vasquez is doing partial training with the team, but still not doing anything full yet. So it's probably going to be maybe not that Miami game from the sound of it. Maybe it's going to be a little bit later in April that he could actually get some limited minutes.
That Miami game is going to be interesting. Miami took a trip to the greater Arlington, Virginia area, and a lot of Austin fans taking particular notice to the way that some of those players conducted themselves in a meeting with the chief executive of the United States. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a very particular look. Phil, I'm looking for a new GOAT because it was never going to be CR7. And yeah, the throne remains vacant. Let's see who else in world football wants that title. Maybe it's just got to be Luka Modric.
Let's go ahead. We want to talk a little bit more about Charlotte.
Yeah.
Since we don't know much about them, I just put up 3 questions. Brian Moore from Top Bin 90, which covers a lot of Carolina soccer, but especially Charlotte FC. Also put a link in there to J. Sam Jones, of course, former striker writer, does mostly Atlanta coverage, as you know, but also does some national stuff for MLS. He does the power rankings write-ups. He does not actually singularly decide the power rankings. He just writes with what the voters came up. And he did a feature on Sir Minty, which is wonderful. It's Sam at his most Sam. You should click and check that out as well. So they're predicting Idan Toklamati, who is their number 9, who is literally wearing the number 9 this year, would score 15 goals this season. He has not scored yet this season, but they project good things for him. Obviously, you have Wilfried Zaha, you have Pep Biel, you have Luca De La Torre, who is a new addition, was on San Diego last year. Liel Abada, who was a Austin FC rumored designated player winger for a hot minute in 2024 before he actually got over to Charlotte. They've had some difficulties in the back. They had a pretty disastrous game against the Galaxy last week where they were down 3-0 in 15 minutes. And the center back, Andrew Privet, who had one of the worst days of his life, was subbed out at halftime. So we might see some changes in the back there, depending. He had projected in particular that Morrison Hajaman, he subbed in that match and he may actually get the start. Toklamati, it's going to be the same deal as a Yeboah or a Tyberiba. Same thing where you have a target number 9 who defense is going to want to focus on. They're going to want to track him at all moments so you don't have a situation like the Yeboah late equalizer.
My similar relative unawareness of a lot of what's going on in Charlotte, I have some of the same kind of general bits of awareness that you've got. For me, this match is going to boil down to the fact that they came off of a not great match against the Galaxy. They are still figuring stuff out. They are very strong at home historically.
Yeah.
But there is something about, an early loss that makes your whole squad look bad, even though it's on the back of one particular guy in Privet. I think that that's really what presents the opportunity for Austin to show that improvement, that Nico's reluctance to be okay with where they have been at for 2 matches running comes into play, where they get to really kick it into overdrive.
You know what their home road split was in 2025?
What was it, Phil?
40 points at home, 19 away.
That was 2025. I mean, look at 2025 LA Galaxy as opposed to 2026 LA Galaxy. Speaking of Charlotte's most recent opponent, there is always that possibility of a trend line extending from one season to the next. But I would caution people, including Charlotte fans, relying too heavily on, look at what our home record was in 2025. Having seen similar things happen with Austin, where they'll have a disappointing loss that is mostly on the back of one guy, and then even if that guy is not starting or even rostered the next match, it can affect the whole rest of the squad. And I'm honestly referring to the Kip Keller season opener against St. Louis, where even when they took him out of the lineup, that loss and the level of embarrassment from it is something that really did affect the rest of the roster, in that they got in their heads about, okay, I'm not going to have a screw up as bad as that guy. I'm not going to contribute to the narrative being we're silly, we're a joke, that kind of thing. And that kind of, I'm going to show how good I am kind of thing is something that I think could affect this Charlotte side.
And certainly we're not going to follow this up by dropping a CONCACAF series to Violette.
Certainly not.
With Amber Tarek saying, Kip Keller, hold my beer.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's not something that you want to will on anybody. I just want everybody to have fun and play enjoyable, entertaining, attractive soccer. I don't, with a few exceptions, I don't just want to see a team have a really terrible time. Charlotte is one of those clubs that has a really positive, optimistic seeming kind of fan base. And yeah, that LA Galaxy loss, I watched the whole match, not just the highlights. I just don't know, because I can see some overcompensating in the back to make up for the fact of what happened last week. And sometimes trying a bit harder ends up not actually helping and gets you more in your head. And this is an Austin team that is much better on the counter, much better at maintaining possession, much better at verticality, getting into the attacking third and doing something with it, drawing set pieces in so many ways year over year, 2025 to 2026, that is better in so many different respects than what we saw last season, that I would hazard to guess that Charlotte's coach might rest a bit on the laurels of, it's an interconference matchup. We're at home. This is what our home record is. Need to make sure that people aren't getting injured going into March break. We can worry about using up some of that well of stamina next time we go on the road. That's psychologically, manager on manager, what we're looking at between Austin and Charlotte.
I think they're going to be singularly motivated in this game because it is their home opener. They are coming off a really bad match. Again, I'm not convinced about the Galaxy still this year, but I imagine they certainly look like world beaters in that match, right? Because Charlotte was a world being beaten in that match. So,
yeah.
But I do think that Charlotte does have some good pieces, but this seems like one of the more winnable early season matches to me, because again, it does get a little trickier as the schedule loads up here. You get LAFC coming in a few weeks. That's the next home match on the 21st. So this would be a good time to grab an away 3 points. Again, if you bank points early, that generally sets you up well for the playoffs. Certainly, we all know that from last year. That is, we got to weather the pretty disastrous May that happened because loaded up on points before that and then loaded up on points after during that little surge that they had in June and July.
That's a big thing that Nico has touched on in some of these early season press conferences and preseason press conferences, is really stacking up those points. Dropping those points in the opener to a draw Disappointing, definitely among the fan base, who were very loud
Sure.
about it. Disappointing to the club.
But even more so with the players, yeah.
Even more so with the players, because they know that stacking up points before the World Cup break is going to be crucial, because everybody is going to have an incredibly rough second half of the season, where the relatively not compressed schedule of the first half of 2026 is going to be nothing like, as we were touching on, the Leagues Cup schedule dropping into the middle of the second half of the season. If Austin does well in Open Cup prior to the World Cup break, they're looking at semifinal and final on the other side of it, mixed in with the beginning phases of a different cup competition, mixed in with the real gauntlet of the regular season. And the things that Roto has said about MLS's developing league, the thing that I think is most fascinating about the potential future of U.S. soccer is just how competitive this league is, and how competitive this league is in other competitions, where the future of Leagues Cup could involve more than 2 leagues across not just North America, but South America as well. They've been pretty clear about the ambition of Leagues Cup being something big and being something truly vivid and interesting. Less 9-0 wins against radically differently resourced clubs from the Caribbean than something like CONCACAF Champions Cup. I think that there could be something especially different depending on what we see with what happens with the USL Championship and USL in general. Those players do not sound like they are ready to bend the knee, because they're being offered effectively nothing of what is actually most important to them. And I think that this MLS season is going to be an interesting lens through which to look at what the future of the U.S. soccer pyramid ends up looking like, which could be completely different in exactly a year's time.
Yeah. With the schedule congestion, remember that they are going to do a sprint season on the back of this. And again, this year, decision day is November 7th, and they're not going to start the playoffs until through the international break, which happens during my birthday week there in mid-November. So you're going, and apparently they are still doing the 8-9 play-in. They are still doing the best of 3 first round. I think we're going to have an MLS Cup around Christmas. I really do. And then, so you're basically going to have these players that are playing essentially without a break, because it's not going to be that much time from, again, the MLS Cup in 26 to the start of the 2027 season. And then they're going to go again with another fall to spring season for the first time in the history. I worry about the schedule congestion. I worry about the player safety. Some of them are going to be in the World Cup as well. So there's going to be nonstop continual soccer. And it's already hot in Austin in March. So I can't imagine what it's going to look like here May, June. On the other side, starting in late July with the second half of the season. I don't know how they fit all this soccer in a way that makes the players safe and healthy. So expanding the roster, certainly if something does happen with USL and things seem to be headed toward a strike here, not this first game of the season, but possibly the week after, is when it might all go down. So maybe we've been talking about this a little bit. Maybe the rosters do expand, and maybe you see that talent coming over to supplemental spots, and maybe MLS does expand the roster to absorb some of those players and to be able to rotate a little bit more, because they're probably going to need to do that.
And I think there is so much speculation to be had all over the internet and even between us when it comes to what the future of the USL Championship is. As we've said on the show, just for saying it, there are a lot of incredible communities that have been built up around USL clubs. These clubs are very important. Oakland Roots, Forward Madison,
Charleston Battery,
Charleston Battery, Louisville City. These are clubs with established, solid fan bases that deserve to experience soccer that is being played by players who are getting what should be considered reasonable for people that are putting their bodies on the line every week, if not twice a week.
Right.
Some of the contingent things on when, if a strike happens, USL Championship teams are supposed to be playing Open Cup games in roughly a week and a half. Roughly a week and a half. If those teams are on strike, they are not playing in those Open Cup games. Forfeitures push some of those semi-pro teams against MLS teams. are these knock-on effects. And the
Mhm.
craziest thing, the little theory that has popped up in the back of my head, one of the things that I mentioned when MLS announced their schedule change was, so is USL just going to keep the same schedule, or are they going to shift to the European schedule too? If they are, how do they do it? Based on the way that USL literally sent a union busting email to all of their players from an email address that many of them received as spam because they had never received anything from the league from that address on Wednesday
Oh,
night.
God.
And to be clear, like I don't have a personal stake in any of this, but when it comes
Mhm.
to organized labor policies, the email that the USL sent out, including instructions for how to renounce your USL Players Association union membership and how to
Mhm.
cross a picket line, is explicitly illegal. It is the shooting yourself in the foot to spite your face. I wish I could be that confident, Phil, like where that level of confidence comes from. I
Mhm.
don't know where USL league leadership came up with that, but it honestly shocking to me. In an era when lots and lots of organized labor disputes and contract negotiations, the Writers Guild, the Screen Actors Guild, all kinds of them have been in the headlines. This is one of the most baffling from the organization ostensibly negotiating with organized labor. They could accidentally be pushing themselves into not being able to start their season until the end of the summer, beginning of the fall, and thereby either cram their entire season into the back half of the year, back third of the year, or force themselves in if they are able to negotiate a new CBA. If, huge if, biggest if in neon lights surrounded in light bulbs. If they can negotiate a new CBA with the players, they may have to negotiate it around completely changing their schedule as of the end of 2026. So what would have been the 2026 season for them becomes the 2026-2027 season, thereby matching the European calendar, matching what MLS is doing, as much
Right.
as the dogs and cats fighting each other, which actually that's not fair to dogs or cats because they're both more beloved than both MLS and USL are by a lot of people.
Way now.
I just love leagues. I love leagues. That's why I love cups
All
involving
leagues.
leagues.
Yep.
All leagues.
Right.
Players, but leagues, let me tell you about leagues. That is how crazy this could end up. That is how difficult to predict the outcome of this is. It could lead to, on the one extreme, the dissolution of USL as an organization, even though USL League One and League Two are not covered in the USL Championship collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
If you don't have the championship, I don't see how the financials work to operate League One, much less the glorious pro-rel structure based directly on the English Football League structure of things down to Premier and Championship and naming conventions. But on the other extreme, it is entirely possible and plausible that they do end up working out a collective bargaining agreement. But reading the tea leaves and looking at what is out there publicly, and this is not based on anything that's been said to me on the record, off the record, or this is just looking at the way that it looks from the outside, that looks like a mess. And I think it tends much more toward the thing where players end up getting released by these clubs and become available on supplementals, and MLS is rapidly looking at how to organize their second division out of clubs that no longer have affiliate agreements with USL.
That becomes like the Washington Post releasing a bunch of their reporters and then the New York Times snapping them up.
Precisely. Absolutely.
Yes.
So it could be that USL players end up providing the roster depth that help a lot of these MLS clubs survive the last half of 2026, which,
Right.
I mean, Austin, fair credit to Austin's sporting operation. They have done a great job of reinforcing things as much as they could in advance of the beginning of the campaign. My big question was just how crazy of a market is it going to be during the summer, and just how many people are going to be spending money in GAM that in the GAM side of things, Austin doesn't have nearly the kinds of resources that others do when they are looking at potentially having a wide open market of players who did a camp, did a preseason for USL, but have not had USL soccer to play for 2 months, 3 months by the time the World Cup break hits. I would love to get a better understanding of what triggers when it comes to clubs having to release these players as free agents. I would love to know some of those kinds of things. And I've got word into a couple people to see if we can get some definition on that. This isn't a USL podcast, but the reason that I've been following this and the reason that I've been filling your ear about it, to your point, this is something that you're the guy who not only wrote the book on US soccer, you did it twice because you didn't have anything better to do. And I think this is a fascinating inflection point in where the pyramid goes from here.
Yeah, and then we're seeing some of these players that we've gotten to know, like ending up in USL. You've got like Kip Keller at New Mexico. Jimmy Time is now Mountain Time because Jimmy Farcarlin has gone to El Paso to be a teammate with Danny Rojas.
That was your best dad joke of the week, was Jimmy Time is now on Mountain Time. Frame it, man. Put it on the wall. But him becoming teammates potentially with Danny Rojas, mucho, mucho joy. At the Locos. That's really great. El Paso is a special club. I'll put it this way. More direct regional rivalry experiences with El Paso, with San Antonio, and the other Texas clubs is something that for the future of U.S. soccer, having a more interoperable pyramid than just, these teams play each other in Open Cup, maybe, I think is something that really fundamentally grows the game much more effectively than giant piles of money being paid to Argentinians.
Right. Yeah. Not to mention El Paso, New Mexico, too. Those teams hate each other.
Oh, my God. They hate each other. I'm just saying, I envision, here's another crazy hypothetical. If MLS as we understand it now, if a version of that remains as a closed top league that cannot promote, relegate down to a league underneath it, and say what currently exists as the USL Championship beyond Open Cup, beyond their individual league campaigns, I think it would be absolutely fascinating for there to be, in the way that you see things like the Carabao Cup, a separate cup competition that lets those regional rivalries where those MLS titans are playing those USL teams more than just maybe one match going into the knockout rounds of Open Cup. Open Cup is great. Open Cup should thrive and survive. But to me, what would be fascinating about a completely rethought Leagues Cup is something that involves Liga MX de Expansión, what is currently USL Championship, MLS, the Canadian Premier League. A real Leagues Cup for North America.
Okay.
That's something that gets me really excited.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't really get to see those Canadian teams that much.
I really intermixing things. That's what would be fascinating to me in a completely re-envisioned version of Leagues Cup that could be possible on the other side of the pyramid reorganizing itself in the chaos, in the wake of World Cup year 2026.
Moisés Chiullán, Commissioner of World Soccer.
I'm doing my best. I'm trying for it.
So do we want to get nerdy here with the goals added differential?
Phil, here it is one of the great pleasures of my life to occasionally go, help me understand the esoteric magic of this analytic sorcery. For those who maybe haven't read the article yet, or people for whom goals added is still a mystery, what's important about goals added? Why does this stat matter? Why is it something that maybe goes far enough in the weeds that even MLS coaches, when you mention this stat to them, they're like, what again? And why is it that the stat heads
on Thursday,
which you did on Thursday, what is it about goals added as a stat that indicates things about the flow of play?
Yeah, so goals added, and we've talked about this before, and the article explains it. John Mueller, who you might know, who does really great work, he's now behind Footy, did some stuff with American Soccer Analysis to help explain this. So essentially what it is, when you have individual players that are taking in-game actions that contribute to scoring goals, be it by passing, receiving, interrupting, to be able to go from playing defense to playing offense, those sorts of things, they help contribute to the team having better chances of scoring. And so those incremental chances of being able to score better based on those player actions essentially becomes that goals added. And then there's individual players get goals added. Julio Cascante was the king of goals added because, again, especially for his position, he did a lot of on-ball offensive stuff that really helped to progress the team forward. John Gallagher is currently the goals added king, 2 matches in 2026. And when you look at the team collectively with goals added, with all the player contributions, the way that things look right now, and again, it's only 2 games in. There were some explanations for why this small sample size might not necessarily be indicative of what's going to happen the whole season. But you've got Verde 6 in goals added differential, and you've got third in goals added. So it's really pretty impressive right now. So they are, again, a lot of this has to do with their shooting numbers and their passing numbers. Currently, they are second in MLS in shooting goals added, third in MLS in passing goals added. So again, part of this has to do with the possession. They played 2 teams that don't really like to possess the ball. They are among the league leaders right now in possession. 7th in possession right now. They've got about 55% over the first 2 games. Of course, Minnesota, DC United, not terribly possessing a lot of the ball in those games. So those numbers might change as we progress through the season. I do expect that to happen. With the goals added against, it's not quite as good, like in terms of fouling, in terms of interrupting what other teams are able to do against them. They've been pretty good at shutting those particular elements down. Goals added differential at the end of a season will not always tell you what a team is performing like. So it won't always give you like the full complete picture of how a team actually does, right? For example, FC Cincinnati is the weird outlier. They were second in the Supporter Shield table in 2025. They were actually 22nd in goals added differentials, so quite a big gulf. Orlando, they were third in goals added differential, and they actually had a late season swoon. They ended up 14th in Shield race, 9th in the East. They ended up losing their play-in match. But looking at the other teams in terms of their Shield rankings, with Philadelphia, Inter Miami, San Diego, Vancouver, LAFC, Minnesota, NYCFC, and Seattle, most of those teams were about 2 or 3 places ahead or behind where the goals added differential said that they would be. Minnesota was a little bit of an outlier here. They were 8th in the Shield standings, but 13 in goals added differential. Again, outsized reliance on set pieces. I think that might have something to do with it. Vancouver, they came one weird Dallas decision day lost from winning the Shield, and they were first in goals added differential, which makes a lot of sense. LAFC was second, and obviously Orlando was third, which is weird, but Philadelphia, they were fourth, and of course they won the Shield. So some pretty strong correlations with those top teams. So if you're doing those kind of things that contribute to goals and you're shutting down other teams from doing those things, then typically you're going to do pretty well in terms of just where you finish in the standings. It tends to, over the course of a season, work out. So I've been talking a while. So
No,
you want to jump in?
That's the thing, is explaining that is something that, even though I mostly understand it at this point, it helps for re-edification. And when looking at it at the beginning of a season, it's like, what is that trajectory looking like? And I think the easy thing for non-stats heads to do is go, look, I don't understand the stat, to be fair, but do we have enough data yet?
Yeah, got 2 teams that don't heavily possess, and that skews things.
Yeah.
I would say we get 7, 8, 9 games into here, and we're actually going to get a better sense of how those teams are just watching the league, right? So
Right.
after 2 games, it's hard to tell. Right now, San Jose is first in goals added differential.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that's going to sustain necessarily, but it could. That's like Timo Werner's played like what, all of 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and they're number 1 in goals added differential right now.
Well,
Deeper into the season, as we get deeper into the season, I think it works.
Yeah. And it's interesting to look at how teams come out of the gate, and maybe do you necessarily want to be San Jose in this equation, or do you look at 2 games of data as you really don't want to be right up there at the top?
Even though Austin's there.
Yeah, that's the thing that is fascinating to me about this, is looking at the way that the trend lines develop when there is more data, to your point, 7 or 8 games in, where things are looking. Is the Ramírez effect?
That's part of it, yeah. You look at DC and you look at the chances that Austin had against them. I mean, they weren't able to convert all but one of those, but we almost saw some goals on set pieces go in, right? There's the Bureau header in particular was pretty impressive. And right there, we had that Torres shot in the early second half that whizzed just wide of the post. Yeah, it's encouraging that they're registering those kind of numbers. Let's talk after LAFC. Let's talk after Miami. Let's see how they do against those opponents and how those maybe shift things. But it's interesting that you've got this metric that's saying that they're one of the elite teams right now on this very small sample size. But then you also have kind of the national punditry saying, oh, this is a middle of the road team. This is a might make the playoffs, might not sort of team. Power rankings have them, 16th, 17th. I've seen as low as 20th. I've seen I think as high as 15 in various power rankings. And of course, we're only a couple weeks in. And the team's not completely built yet either. There are going to be more pieces that come in the summer, but I have a feeling. So again, you don't really sell 2 international spots for half a season unless you maybe have a plan for one of those at least.
That international slot coming back to them because of the rule change, which Phil is still not updated on the MLS website, the rule?
Last time I checked, it was not.
Okay, yeah.
And I've also
Very
put something
MLS.
out to the league, which got ignored.
So
I have to follow up.
They're busy getting a Leagues Cup announcement out, man. So I guess we don't have much else to cover before we get to refreshing people on watch party details. Let me ask you this, Phil. How are you feeling 2 games in to the point of there's only so much data to analyze? What is your temperature check? What is the Phil West heat index on the club 2 games in? What do you think things are looking like at the moment?
I feel decently good. I would feel a whole lot better if they had not let in that equalizer against Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, if that draw was actually a win, they would be 5th, tied with the Red Bulls right now in the Supporters Shield table, which is pretty good. You've got a home game against Minnesota. You've got a home game against DC. Those are probably not going to be your 2 hardest matches of the year. So we haven't really seen a lot yet, but I do like the offensive ideas that we're beginning to see. I do like the additions that we've had on this team. Again, I don't know if we're going to see Rosales as a right wing the whole season. I don't know that I want to see that necessarily, but I'm happy 2 games in. I think it's looking good. They're on pace for more goals than they had in 2025, which is certainly a plus. They're on a trajectory for more points than they had in 2025. So we are seeing things improve, I think, across the board. It's just a matter of can they sustain it and what happens when they hit these really, really tough games, right? So what happens against LAFC? What happens against Miami? What happens when they face Vancouver for the first time? All those sorts of things. Like seeing them test against the elite, I think is going to be interesting. But clearly Ramírez is a good addition, and I feel a lot better about the striker situation now that he's here and can plug in accordingly. Still curious kind of out on Azuni, but having 1 goal 2 games in is better than having no goals 2 games in.
Yeah.
Does this all square with what you're thinking? Where are you at right now?
I mean, very, very similar place. I think the only things that I'd have to add is, to me, it is the road between here and Miami that is fascinating to me. Remember a couple of years ago when nobody believed that Austin FC was going to beat Monterrey and Pumas?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody.
I do remember that.
Nobody.
Yeah, I remember that.
There's a sort of giant killing opportunity there of not even necessarily winning, showing up and showing themselves to be competitive with an Inter Miami that has so many advantages that aren't just their number 10 in their favor, that I think that game and that platform offers this club. It's going to be fascinating to see how well locker room leadership sticks together, group cohesion sticks together, from brief asides off the record, on background or whatever, talking to various players. It seems like the vibe is it is very collaborative. It is very a rising tide lifts all boats, more locker room unity than last year, which isn't to say that there was like some big crazy problem last year, but a definite sense of there being an improvement year over year. One of the things that I wonder about is what we're looking at in terms of the leadership progression. Brad Stuver's Brad Stuver, but when it comes to the bilingual player leadership, for as many seasons as Ilya Sanchez is still around, Ilya is some of the stickiest glue that is ever glued in MLS, right?
Yeah.
But who is the heir apparent in this locker room for that role? Is it Facundo Torres? He's definitely already shown indications of being of a similar age of Danny Pereira, but being in a very different life stage as Danny Pereira.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially that year in Sao Paulo, that did a lot to refocus what he wants the next phase. And honestly, from my read, the rest of his career to be like, just based on him talking to NPR here in the last couple of days, a video that the club put up with our buddy Juan. Maybe that's part of the story that we see over the course of the season, is we see Facundo grow into this, if not club lifer, he wants to be here for the next significant portion of his career. Yeah. He wants that stability for the family. He likes the vibe of this club. He loves the energy of the fan base. That, to me, is going to be more crucial in terms of what kind of a result we are looking at against Miami than anything else, is the way that some of these newer guys show up and keep everybody together and keep everybody unified, because that is going to be a hell of a game where the writer's room definitely has a particular result in mind. It is going to be a big opportunity for Miami to show themselves to be what they are, what their budget charge reflects them to be. But man, it will make better TV for the unaffiliated or for people with a bias in one direction or another, for Austin to really show up and surprise Miami. And I would wish nothing more, in particular, for Robert Taylor to be well enough to play in that game and show up and be the guy that we saw in that Minnesota match, which to me was the guy that he showed up as last season. MCLs are tricky things. I would advise against betting on them, but I would wish nothing more than for him to be able to show up big against the club that he previously played for.
So by saying the Taylor that showed up last season, you're saying at the start of the season,
at the start of the season,
pre-injury,
yes.
Pre-injury, he looked pretty solid. After the injury, he didn't seem like the same player as you've mentioned before.
You can recuperate, and sometimes it just comes to the stress test not working out. But we saw the guy that he showed up on the other side of the transfer in that game against Minnesota.
And then we see Rodo continuing to work some magic, right? Not just with the international spots. Rodo told each of us separately last week about the acquisition of Ramírez off waivers. And as it turns out, he put a bid in an hour before the deadline so nobody could come in and bust him. It was like you had likened it to when you jump into an eBay auction really late and you put down that final bid in the seconds before so nobody can top your bid.
Yeah, it's that thing where you're like, this thing's going to end at 3 a.m. I'll be awake at 2 a.m. I'm gonna put in my bid right then. And my read was that he would be fine with us talking about this because every other club in MLS that he snowed to pull this off on knows by now exactly what he did, where he put in the bid when he did because he assumed that however quickly the league would communicate it to them, they would not be ready to lightning fast launch a counter that those above Austin FC in the preference listing would have been entitled to do. Yeah, it was get in when nobody else is awake.
And what else he did is he set that just $1,000 below where the maximum supplemental salary was, where you could buy it down with GAM.
Yeah.
If you're bidding higher, you're committing to him as a senior roster player. And maybe you have a spot on your roster, but maybe you don't.
Yeah, it's really incredible deal making. I wish he cut me a check to say that because I could use the money. But that kind of deal making and then getting him on a plane later the same day, talking to the manager, hey, here's the plan, here's the idea and everything. And then medicals. And then next morning, quick practice session with the team, and the next day game winner.
Put him on the roster, which we weren't even sure at the time. We said, he probably won't be on the roster. But
I said on the record, I didn't think there was a chance in hell that he played, because that's a hell of a fast turnaround, but shows what happens when you doubt Christian Ramírez.
And Nico Esteves, for that matter.
And Nico Esteves, yeah.
It was ballsy, right? It was kind of a gutsy thing to not only put him on the roster, just having had one training session, but then actually injecting him into the game and injecting him into the game with Azuni rather than replacing Azuni.
Oops, all strikers,
Yeah.
I tell you what, 3 days after playing internationally with the team that put him on waivers, that's incredible to me when it comes to a guy uprooting his family, wife, and 3 kids. That to me is a perfect kind of statement, and the way that he talks about mental health, just as a player. When I texted you, Austin got Christian Ramírez, I think the reaction was, what?
Wait, didn't I text you?
You sent me the Bogart text. I had loaded the text to send it to you and just had not hit send. That I think Austin just got Christian Ramírez, and then you sent that, and my reaction to it was, whoa. And yeah, it was that rumblings were out there on social media, and I was confused, because how is it possible?
Who are letting go on the senior roster?
Yeah, how is the senior roster working? Also, why would Galaxy let go of that guy? He's great.
Same reason they let go Sean Davis last year.
Yeah.
On the heels of getting him in the offseason.
Yeah, I don't know. I tell you, more like that, please. Keep surprising us in ways that we can't predict. You know what I can predict, though, Phil?
What can you predict?
A good time had by all at Hop Squad this Saturday.
I knew this was coming. Good
Watch
transition.
party starting 5 p.m. Central. Even though Phil's on Pacific time, everybody will start partying at 3 p.m. his time. Kickoff 6:30 Central. Hop Squad Brewing, if you don't already know it, 2307 Kramer. All ages friendly, dog friendly, rain friendly. There's free parking on site and in the lot next door. Yucatan Tacos and more is going to be set up. Get in your orders for the Cochinita Pibil early to make sure that you get it before she runs out. It's their specialty.
Okay.
When it's mom's recipe from the Yucatan, oh, you're eating good. Merch sales by Los Verdes. Going to have the new Los Verdes shirts designed by Bobby Dixon, designer of the new member scarf that will be imminently, in just the next couple of weeks, starting to ship out. Dispensary, who produce enamel pins for Los Verdes, will be set up. Dan Lewis, Cuídate, is going to be showing up. And Hop Squad's going to be doing $5 beers during the match. And if you're an F1 sicko, you can just stay through, because F1 starts at 10.
Okay. Wow. You make a day of it. Okay.
You sure can. And tonight.
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds good. I wish again that I could be there, but I cannot. So I'll be watching. I'll be watching from Seattle. I'll be writing. I'll be on Pacific time for all of that. And then obviously next week we'll be back, both of us in Austin, unless something strange happens. So yeah, and we've made it through this whole podcast without my mom peeking in and see what I'm
not even once. There will be yet another completely unexpected player edition that will once again have me forgetting the exact text exchange, whether it was the one for Facundo, whether it was the one for Christian, or who knows, Jaden Nelson. It's been a year of surprises, and I don't expect the surprises are going to stop anytime soon.
This is the best thing I've heard in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.